Microsoft Teams Rooms certified hardware. What buyers need to know. The first thoughts were, do any of us actually use Microsoft Teams Rooms?
No.
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 And the answer is no.
Yes. I mean, no.
Let's get to chatting about some of the other information that this report gave us. On this episode, we discuss product certification, equipment reuse, and rising prices. All that and more on EdTech. EdTech episode 142, Take One for the Teams. Hello, AV friends, and welcome to another episode of EdTech. As always, we have our panel of awesome higher ed AV professionals. Ernie Bailey. Hey, Ernie.
Hey, Aaron. Glad to be back again.
And we also have Rob Rasberry. Hey, Rob.
Hey, Aaron. Always glad to be here.
Yes. And today's special guest joining us for this episode is Will DeWitt from the University of Southern California. Welcome, Will.
Hey, Aaron. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. And so how about we start off by you telling us a little bit about what you do over there at USC?
I'm the Learning Environments Manager, which basically means we support all of the classrooms, everything in it. Furniture, we do checks every night. We make sure the teachers are ready in the morning. Teachers have a problem, they call us. They get one of our students on call right away. There's no press 1, press 2 or more options because you got teachers in front of classes that are already kind of a little frazzled. So you want to make sure you get to them as soon as possible. So that's my main focus is delivering customer service as best we can.
Absolutely. And it is quite an operation they have over there. I was lucky enough to get to visit once and very impressive. Well, all right. Let us jump into the articles that we read for this episode. This first one comes from AV Buyers Club. AVR cameras and tracking system received HETMA approved status. This one was written by Steph Beckett. So, all of us that are in higher ed, we're very familiar with HETMA and, the approved program that that they've created. But what is the value of this program or other certification type programs for us higher ed AV folks?
Well, I think any type of these certifications or approval packages that you see are beneficial to us. They let us know that someone in our profession has reviewed the product, knows how it works, and confirms that it does what we expect it to do. I do look through the HETMA list quite often as we're reviewing products and say, is this on there? Or, may say, why hasn't this product been reviewed? It's been out there a while. And may reach out and ask somebody, is this on the list to be reviewed, or has this been reviewed and rejected type deal?
Yeah, I think, like you said, the biggest hurt is just word of mouth. But a lot of us are in little tiny islands and isolated from one another. And so it's great that we have HETMA and other organizations to kind of pull people together. But with any large expenditure, you've got kind of a narrow path to follow. You only get one shot. If you screw it up, you lose your credibility. And even if they give you a 30-day window to evaluate something, that's not really enough to put it in the hands of teachers and really kind of run it through its paces. But that's where you can rely on other institutions that have had it for longer or have put it in their own to say, okay, yes, this is something you should trust.
Yeah, peer review is so valuable. And, we always talk about, networking and getting with your peers, and who do you trust? Do you trust, the spokesperson for the company, or are you going to trust, your colleague that you see from another institution just like yours who has just put it through the works and, says, yes, I like this, I like that, I like that. And a lot of the times it is about trust. And like you said, Will, reputation, Ernie, the organizations, knowing the technology managers, all that kind of thing. So it's extremely valuable.
Right. I mean, I've had people come back to me and tell me, hey, I looked at this, the Google reviews are great. Well, you don't know who wrote those Google reviews. We know the people who do the HETMA evaluations. It may even be some of us, you know?
And for me, I try to look at it from, I know what I want, but that's not necessarily the same thing as the teacher that rolls in 10 minutes before their class because they've only got 10 minutes between class changes, has to get it set up, has to perform, is getting evaluated. And like I said, is sitting there in front of 30, 100, 200 students, all staring at them, expecting it to work. And they're like,
Yeah. And like a lot of times there's so many products and options out there. It's kind of nice to have had somebody else do some of the work too, to kind of narrow down which ones are kind of top of the class. And so then maybe I'll demo in my own environments, you know, the top two, and, you know, save me the time of having to kind of run every model through its paces. And so we can make decisions faster, because there's so many times that we have to make, you know, we have to get projects going and make decisions that we don't necessarily have the time to really like check out all the options. So it's kind of nice to have trusted sources that we can be like, okay, that product does what it says. And then, you know, we can put our dollars in the best places.
my soapbox that I stand on is every time someone says, oh, we got this hot new feature. Okay, can I turn it off? Because I need time to test it. I need time to prepare it. I need the time to train the faculty, because even though it's really cool and awesome, they aren't thinking the same way that I am. And yeah, I would love to use it, but maybe not so much them. Maybe some will. We'll see. But let's put some guardrails in place.
Oh yeah, I mean, auto tracking cameras is probably one of the best examples of that. We all thought, this is great. Everybody's going to love like the auto tracking, and 9 times out of 10, the faculty wanted us to turn it off because they were like, it's not doing what I need or want it to do. We're like, oh, well, now we know. Well, all right. Then let's move on to this next piece that was on Innovate on the net.net, givingback.tech to host webinar exploring AV product reuse. This is great to have another outlet to, you know, to potentially reuse old gear. But what are we all doing with our old stuff?
Usually there's 2 paths that it goes. Either it gets thrown out or it gets donated to another organization. So the first time that, you know, we take devices or a system out of the cycle, we will look at, okay, can another organization who does not have this kind of anything, can they use it? Make sure that it works and they're able to use it. Or we have these Recyclemania days and stuff like that. And if there's stuff that can't be used, we will recycle it or throw it out. And those are usually the 2 paths that we go. So having an organization or something like this that's sort of almost formalizing this is a great idea. It's wonderful.
Yeah, I like the idea. Now, we are a state institution, and the state of Arkansas has a procedure for getting rid of this stuff. We call it marketing and redistribution. So if I can't use something, first I make it available on campus to other groups who might be able to use it if I want it to stay on campus. Sometimes I don't want the technology still here. It's too old and we're going to have to be dealing with it. We don't want to deal with it. But we send it to the redistribution area, and for the first 90 days, it's available to any public school, K through 12 plus, or other state institutions. You can go in, you can get it, you can look at it. They have a website. You can go by and check it out. And there's certain days of the week, different groups can go look at it, pick it up. You pay a minimal fee just to pay for the warehouse more than anything else. Then after the 90 days or 120 days, depending on what type of product it is, it's available for the general public to purchase, and they can purchase it at a discounted rate, but more than what another state agency would pay for it. So we have it, like I said, it's similar to this, but we're required to do that with anything of value that we have.
Yeah, for us, we have partnerships with some local schools because we're kind of in a large metro area. So we work with them to donate whatever we can. Some stuff does get thrown out just because it's so old that it's not really even worth putting in and supporting. But for the most part, we try to donate it. When I was in other institutions that were state-run, we had more strict rules, but we could, and so they'd go on to like GovDeals or similar platforms. But we would tip off certain donors that would take them off our hands. So, I mean, default is donate if possible, but it depends on your budget, how old the material is. Some equipment is just not even really worth it to put in even.
Yeah, it's nice to potentially have another group that sort of takes care of that for you, as opposed to adding on one more thing for your department to have to take care of once you've taken that equipment out. I know that my team made the conscious decision to try to lessen the amount of equipment that we're putting into spaces, like being very deliberate about the number of boxes and things that are going to be potential landfill material someday. So we're kind of starting at the beginning and trying to keep it, the less we have to recycle or e-cycle and reuse, the better. But yeah, there's always going to be something. And it's great to have a third party's help with some of that.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Like, sure, I can give them my old Tron boxes, but then they've got to pay to reprogram them, get them to work in their system. At the end of the day, is it worth it even for them to take it?
There's a reason why we took it out, typically.
Yeah.
Like it's reached end of life. Yeah, it may have some time left to it, but it's going to be a finite amount of time, and they're just going to have to replace it probably sooner than later anyway. So it maybe if there's a way to refurbish the stuff first a little bit better than like my team would be able to, yeah, we'll clean things up. We'll maybe put in, if like with the lamp projectors, when we were getting rid of the last of them, we would, the ones that had, only a few hours left of lamp life, we would put in a new one to try to, cycle those out too, since we weren't going to need them anymore. But yeah, it ends up, it's hard to determine. I feel bad giving away equipment that they're going to install and put effort into, and then it's going to...
Especially since it's K-12 usually that is taking this stuff, and they're overworked as it is.
And this next one is on AVNation.tv. Microsoft Teams Rooms Certified Hardware. What buyers need to know. And this one was written by Tim Albright. So initially, the first thoughts were, do any of us actually use Microsoft Teams Rooms? And the answer is no, basically. But there was a lot more in this article than that. So let's get to chatting about some of the other information that this report gave us.
In some instances, I thought Tim was sort of talking to me directly with this article, but and as we were discussing beforehand, yeah, we don't have a whole lot of Teams Rooms use. Although when I went back and thought about it, the schools that do use it are advanced. In other words, engineering, some physics, that kind of stuff. They use that here and there, but there's not a whole lot of use. The question here is, what platform and functionality are you going to really use when you look at a broader use of this? So it just so happened that maybe a month and a half ago, we're in the process of doing some refreshing for our poly video audio bars. And in order to, go to the next step, we're talking to some manufacturers and integrators, and they mentioned the MDEP, platform, and how, being able to be certified by that will allow you, greater features, all this kind of stuff. But in the end, like, a lot of my classrooms are general use classrooms. So do I really need all this advanced certification and everything else? I don't know if that's the case. In some spaces, I will. Here's another example. What about a high-end, executive, provost, or some kind of high-level IT organization that needs, needs the Microsoft ecosystem to enable and do a lot of what they're doing. So the question becomes, there's companies that were listed on there that are sort of trying to catch up with this certification, other words, that are on top of it. And I think at a higher level, maybe at a corporate or at a resource-rich institution, I think something like this will be very, very pertinent. For us, it is. I mean, a lot of us use Microsoft, as our infrastructure. But in our educational spaces, do we have to have this is the question. Android-based displays, this kinds of things. Simplicity sometimes is the best way to go in some instances. In some other spaces, higher, active learning or higher lab intensive spaces where it needs more intensive, features and stuff like that. Well, maybe that's a Microsoft thing. So when Tim wrote this, it was more like, what kind of infrastructure and ecosystem are you going to choose, and what do you need? If it's Teams and you need, security features, a lot of AI stuff, sure, that's fine. But you know what? Zoom can do some of that stuff too. So I'm just saying, and in the, I guess in a way in the financial area, if I can get a decent, Android, based interactive display, and ultimately, if they're not going to use the features, they just plug it in to use it as, a display to show their course content for a class. Do I need all this other stuff? I don't know. So it's like you're weighing in on two different sides of the coin here. So
Yeah, I agree. And, we've seen, we're seeing the same thing with Zoom. They're certifying products to work with their Zoom rooms. Now, they're not going as far as what it looks like Microsoft may be and saying you have to have the stuff certified for it to work in our ecosystem. Zoom saying, if you're using something outside of this list, don't call us with your problems. And we've worked with other groups that do things similar, but they are telling us that we have tested this. It works within the environment you're looking at. And I mean, while we're a Microsoft house for administration, IT, all that, our academic programs all run on a Zoom platform. So I need things that are going to work in both. I do think, if we see the in-depth, the Microsoft develop, device ecosystem certification, I know it's going to work in a Teams meeting or a Teams room. I mean, we don't have Teams rooms, but we do a lot of Teams meetings. So I know it's going to work there, and it's probably going to work in the Zoom environment as well. Or if we go to a WebEx meeting or Google Meet or anything else like that, if it's been tested by one of the platforms, it's probably going to work within most of them. And one thing it did say is when you're building out rooms, even if you don't know what platform you're going to end up with in 18 months, if you've seen that it's been certified by whoever, Microsoft, Zoom, whoever, you can kind of feel comfortable about it and that you'll be able to use it when you get to that point. So it's very similar to what we talked about with the HETMA approved devices. Or it's a certification, or it's a recognition that this is going to work the way we say it's going to work, and it'll work. We know that if we do build a Zoom or a Teams room, then this piece of equipment is going to work in it without any problems. So, I mean, while we're not going to specifically build towards a Teams room, that doesn't mean I'm not going to look at these certifications on things that I'm putting in the other classrooms. If I find two pieces that will both give me the results that I want, and one of them's got the MDEP label on it, I'm probably going to lean towards that one.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of straddle the line a little bit here. All of our systems are Windows-based, and our engineers want that because of support, because it's easier for them to roll out management and to support everything without, because Android doesn't offer the same level of support. That said, we're Zoom focused and Zoom first, just because that's what we use. And I'm not going to say anything good came out of the pandemic, but everybody knows how to use Zoom now.
Yes.
We also have Teams, WebEx, Google Meet. I forget one other one. So that you can use anything you want on our systems, but that's what we're focused toward, because that's what everybody uses. We've got certain vendors that always want to use Teams, generally because they're more tied in with Microsoft. And it's always like, okay, now I got to go to the web. I got to think, no, don't download, quit, stop, let me log in. It's just easier. And like I said, all of our teachers, everybody's been trained on how to use Zoom. There's not really an excuse not to know how to use it now. So that's what we're focused on.
And the other thing that was interesting, and Ernie and Will, these great points. I mean, a lot of us are Windows based. And so having the device MDEP certified is definitely a definitive advantage. And if it is, yeah, you're going to absolutely lean towards it. The other part of this article I thought was interesting is to talk about, and we're always talking about this, trying to move to one platform, the CBI interoperability. We don't see a whole lot anymore of Teams joining Zoom joining Teams, or WebEx joining, and this interoperability. It's usually one or the other. And, at what, road are you going to go down? And I'm assuming that all of us on here are mainly Windows based, but, there are institutions that use the Google platform. And in that case, what are they going to do? How are they going to evaluate what they use? But this article works on so many different levels. It was interesting to see, all the points that were within it.
Yeah, I've also heard from little birdies that Teams certification is harder to get than Zoom certification. So a lot of people go for Teams first and then Zoom second.
But I think, like what we were saying a while ago, if you take Teams out and just read the basic article, the basics behind it, it's good. It's good thinking for any type of platform you're going to be building. The premise behind it is there. And, I've shared this article with my team. Even though we're not, like I said, we're not building out Teams rooms. We do Teams meetings and Zoom meetings all the time. We're looking at deploying some Zoom rooms to solve some issues we're having with cross-campus Zoom configurations and the amount of time it takes to get it set the way the instructor wants it. Right now it's taking me two techs, one in Little Rock, one in Fayetteville, spending 10 minutes each making the connection right for one instructor. And if I can get that time back and put it on a button, that's the way we're going to go.
But Ernie, this room never works.
Always hear that one from faculty.
Yeah.
But I did find it interesting, the kind of one data point that I, from the article, that like 98% of the channel partners that were part of the survey that the article was, talking about, they cite Microsoft Teams as a primary hardware sales driver. And at first I was like, really? But, especially after we've talked through everything, now it kind of makes a little bit more sense. Because at first I was thinking, well, maybe the channel partners that they were talking to are more corporate. They don't deal with education as much, because that seems, but at the same time, if you're thinking of like a baseline to start with, that not necessarily future proofing, but allowing for changes that would come, that potentially having things, that starting at a Microsoft Teams certified kind of level, that when these upgrades come later, that a lot of those things will still work.
Along that line, Aaron, what I see is we're education, we're higher ed. I mean, it's part of our name here. I've been in higher ed AV for almost half a century. So when I think AV, I think of it in the academic environment or even in the health science environment. But there's a lot more to AV, and there's, like you said, there's the corporate, and that's going to be Teams. And most of the corporate market, they're going to be communicating with Teams, and it's going to mean a whole lot to them. So this does mean a lot when you get outside higher ed, but this is EdTech, right?
And Aaron, to sort of add on to your comment about, a lot of the people that they surveyed for this were talking about Microsoft being Teams driven. Also think about this. Teams is integrated into a Windows operating system. Zoom's not, WebEx is not. It's very much almost, even though, Zoom is expanding out to do some other things, they're not an iOS or tied to iOS or tied to Windows. And when you hear something that's tied to Microsoft, your brain sort of says, oh, it's Windows, it'll work on, in this whole system. And it sort of can, in a way, subtly influence, the way you're thinking. Because, okay, it's Teams. Well, it's going to work with Office. It's going to work with all the, Microsoft products, all this kind of stuff. It does sort of guide, I'm going to say, nudge you in a certain pathway. Not that you're going to, decide you're going to go that way, but it's like, yeah, if you want to use all our stuff, you may want to just go this way,
No, absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense, because yes, and so many of us are very much Windows-based campuses.
Yeah.
Well, all right. This last one comes to us from AV Magazine on avinteractive.com, and it was written by Guy Campos. Blackmagic raises prices and adds no storage ATEM models. Oh,
yeah.
It's tough to see, because I always, it's not that I'm saying, I don't want to say that Blackmagic is cheap, but it was always
inexpensive, affordable,
right? Like prosumer version. Like my events team absolutely loves Blackmagic stuff, and I'm like, oh, but it's if it's like hitting them, it's hitting everybody.
It makes me glad I made the Blackmagic purchases 3 months ago that we made. Because we were looking at we just purchased several of the high-end ATEM products with a ton of storage. So I guess we did it at just the right time.
Smart. Yep.
I just have to make it last now until I retire.
Yeah. I mean, it is kind of smart, though, for them to make a version without the storage for those setups that either are using like a high, like real high bandwidth, high processing compute to just shuttle all of the content away to some other location anyway. To add all the options, giving the people the options. I
mean, storage is kind of storage at a certain point.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you get to a certain level and you start getting diminishing returns. Whereas if you can replace the middle gear, then you start, that's where the changes. So I see why they would do that, because if I've already got, I don't know, a couple terabytes of storage at high fidelity bit rate, whatever, then I'd rather just invest in the stuff that's going to make it look better when it's recorded versus recording on the device itself. Also, it's easier with modular hardware to be able to swap it in and out. I use Blackmagic hardware. I've used Grass Valley hardware. At a certain point, price stops becoming an object, but they're more skewed towards the people where price is an object. So I see why they would kind of go for that. For me, the biggest thing is like people always, whenever I'm talking to manufacturers, like, well, it depends on your price. They're like, just tell me the MSRP. I'm going to take that. I used to add 10%. Now I'm going to add 20%. Present it. If that gets approved, nobody's going to complain if I come in under budget.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's almost I'm not going to say an interesting, how should I say this, inverse selling point where it's like we're raising our prices, but what we're cutting out is the storage, and the interpretation of storage is that it's expensive. So if we left the storage in, it would be so much more. But if you get it yourself, you're going to save money. It's like this. Wait, what? But yeah, and this is sort of across a bunch of other devices too. The price is just, if you get a quote and you don't act on it, Ernie, like you did, then your price is going to go up. Because of everything that's happening in our global, wonderful world of peace and everything else. But anyway,
yeah, I feel like they're hoping to target the people that are like upgrading versus the people that are doing new installs.
Yeah, good point.
Because new install is easier to get more money versus upgrades.
Thank you, everybody. This has been a fantastic conversation. But yeah, so if after this episode airs, anyone wants to reach out to you, how might they, Will?
You can reach me best on HETMA.org. Just search my name, I'll pop up.
Excellent. And how about you, Ernie?
LinkedIn is a good way to get a hold of me.
And how about you, Rob?
LinkedIn is fine, but I will give you my email, rer37@drexel.edu. You can shoot me an email as well.
Excellent. And as for me, you can find me on LinkedIn, on the HETMA community, and each month here on AVNation's EdTech podcast that can be found on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also find other AVNation podcasts like AV Career Mastermind, State of Control, or Women in AV. See you next time.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
Hello, this is Steve Greenblatt, host of AVNation's State of Control podcast. Each month, Rich Fregosa and I explore trending topics related to control, programming, and automation in the audiovisual industry. We speak with a variety of AV professionals who share their perspectives, knowledge, and experiences. Please join us for this monthly conversation. Check out A State of Control on avnation.tv or wherever you get your podcasts.